ladies and gentlemen, and TV show lovers of all kind, and welcome back to the channel. As always, I am your host, Brett Murphy, and for today's video, it is going to be another ranking. And I am going to be ranking all 9 episodes of What If. So What If is a Disney Plus original animated series that ponders the question, what if, as it pertains to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, with various creative scenarios like what if Peggy Carter had replaced Steve Rogers for the Super Soldier experiment, what if zombies invaded the MCU, or what if T'Challa was Star-Lord, so on and so forth. And this is how they believe it would play out and affect the overall universe. The entire series is indeed animated, and each episode plays out over the course of 30 minutes or so. And with the finale of Season 1 being Episode 9 finally being released to the public, it is time to rank each episode of this series. Before we hop into the actual ranking, I just wanted to let you all know that I have an entire playlist dedicated to all of my ranking videos. So be sure to check that out, and I guarantee you'll find something you like. Oh, and one last thing. Major spoiler warning, as I will be talking pretty heavily about spoilers for each episode of What If. Therefore, you have been warned. And with all that being said, let's hop right into things. Number 9. What If Thor Were an Only Child? To me, this episode is the most childish of the bunch. Now that's not necessarily an awful thing, but it's noticeably more lighthearted than all of the others. I actually like the premise of this episode a lot, and the opening hints at an episode that really emphasizes that Thor and Loki need each other despite all that they've been through throughout their MCU journeys. But that's not what really happens. Instead, we basically just get Party Planet. The dude bro frat boy Thor thing gets old very quickly. And for whatever reason, Jane is reduced to basically being a brainless bimbo, who immediately just falls head over heels for Thor, taking away any logic or intellect from her character, which is what made Jane Jane. Darcy's jokes are frequent and very hit or miss, although I did cackle at the fact that her and Howard the Duck got married. It was admittedly pretty cool to see various cosmic characters from the MCU pop up at this party, and at the very least, the throwdown between Thor and Captain Marvel was colorful, vibrant fun. Number 8. What if Captain Carter were the first Avenger? Sadly, despite my liking of this episode, it sort of just ends up here by default, as it didn't really do anything new or exciting. It's basically just a gender-swapped retelling of the first Avenger. I mean, it works because I love the first Avenger, and Captain Carter is a great character that I definitely want to see more of. And of course, Haley Atwell crushes it as expected. The only new stuff that they threw in there was a bit of comedy, a giant tentacle monster, and somehow Howard Stark manages to create a full-fledged iron suit in the 1940s. In the end, this episode just failed to do anything unexpected or unpredictable. Number 7. What if T'Challa became a Star-Lord? Firstly, having Chadwick Boseman back, even in animated form, was beautiful and brought a tear to my eye. This episode overall, though, is just a total blast from start to finish. It takes a lot of ridiculously unexpected turns when it comes to some of the MCU's most established characters. It has some great comedic elements and a fantastically over-the-top final fight. Even if I don't believe for a second that Benicio del Toro is that shredded under all of that wacky and outlandish clothing. Number 6. What if Killmonger rescued Tony Stark? Right out of the gate, I really liked how Tony Stark being saved means that he never becomes Iron Man, and that he never turns over a new leaf. He stays the same pretentious, egotistical asshole that he was before the events of the first film, and he never realizes the error of his ways. I also really loved how it emphasized that Killmonger is destined to be a villain one way or another because of his origin story. And I would even venture to say that he is even more manipulative and evil in this episode than he was in Black Panther, because the dude kills T'Challa, Rhodey, and Tony, and manipulates all of Wakanda. It was great to see too how they spliced in elements of the actual film, like Killmonger betraying Ulysses Klaue. I also found it really cool to see what Wakanda would look like in 2008-ish. The war sequence between the Wakandans and the robots is great and all, but the robots go down way too easy in my mind, especially considering they're made of vibranium. And the Shuri and Pepper team up in the end is wicked. Number 5. What if zombies? I really do wish this episode was much longer. The darker and more emotional moments of the episode were by far its best, because I found a lot of the comedy didn't really work that well. I also found that it was surprisingly violent and gory, even if the blood wasn't red. This episode also made some bold choices and took some unexpected turns that I actually quite enjoyed. It was also a very interesting way to bring zombies into the MCU, because I like how they were able to retain some of who they were, which led to the fights being much more interesting. And the cherry on top at the end was the hopeful ending, which I thought was actually a nice touch. Oh, and how could I forget? Zombie Thanos with an Infinity Gauntlet? Holy shit. Number 4, what if the world lost its mightiest heroes? This episode really caught me off guard because it was surprisingly so dark. Like, far darker than I ever would have expected. There really wasn't that much comedy at all, and I truly dug it for that reason. It was so shocking to see Earth's mightiest heroes just drop like that. And it gives us a brief look of what their world could look like without them in it, especially when you splice in Loki's invasion. Then you add in the wild big reveal of who was behind all of it, and the absolutely soul-crushing reason as to why. And in the end, you have one hell of a memorable what if. Number 3, what if Doctor Strange lost his heart instead of his hands? This episode tugged on my heartstrings far more than it had any right to. I mean, it's just utterly heartbreaking to watch the car crash over and over and over, and to see and hear the desperation coming out of Strange as he tries everything he possibly can to save the woman he loves. From there, though, the desperation escalates, leading to Strange becoming more and more power-hungry as he consumes creatures from other dimensions to absorb their powers. It's genuinely devastating to see this mighty hero crumble and fall into darkness and madness. And in the end, the whole universe just disappears. An incredibly morbid and impactful ending. Not to mention, this all-powerful Doctor Strange noticing the Watcher was incredibly perplexing and made me quite uneasy. Number 2, what if the Watcher broke his oath? This episode is basically just a mini Endgame, except with 8 30-minute episodes of build-up instead of a decade plus. But I definitely admire the effort and ambition. Once again, like I found with most of this show, the comedy was meh at best. Party Thor got old in his episode and only older here. But this team-up offers a very unique and diverse dynamic between the characters, as they all put their abilities to good use in this genuinely epic final battle. I love how this episode incorporates elements from all of the episodes that came before it, yes, even the zombies. Also, evil, almighty Doctor Strange is an absolute beast. But this episode also made me curious, can just anyone touch the stones now with no repercussions at all? Killmonger almost got his ultimate time to shine, and it makes me think that it's still such a shame that he was killed off in his first movie. Also, the way that Doctor Strange said what are friends for in the end made me very suspicious. I loved the little character moments at the end with both Peggy and Black Widow that wrapped everything up with a nice neat little bow on top, paired with the Watcher's closing monologue and montage. Number 1, what if Ultron won? Firstly, Ross Marquand is a great actor, voice actor, and impressionist, but he's no James Spader. The written dialogue for him, though, as Ultron is exceptional, and I love seeing the character of Ultron back again as he is one of my favorite MCU villains. The only really big gripe I have with this episode is the fact that Thanos gets dummied in like 2 seconds, like just like that. Because, I don't think that's how that would play out. Especially considering he had every other Infinity Stone. It was pretty awesome and terrifying though to see all these familiar locations and characters get destroyed in an instant. The first time that Ultron hears the Watcher and senses him is chilling. Also, Black Widow and Hawkeye being the last 2 left. I don't know about that one. I mean, I liked the setup of them being up in the Quinjet and Hawkeye worrying about his family, but them surviving this long and then kicking all of these robots' ass with ease? Whatever, I guess. But I also do greatly respect Hawkeye's reverse endgame sacrifice, as it shows what it would have been like if it were the other way around. Ultron breaking out of his universe and into the Watcher's reality was a stroke of brilliantly shocking genius. Ultron versus the Watcher is a high-stakes, creative, unique, colorful, and overall epic and beautiful throwdown. And finally, the Watcher meeting with evil Doctor Strange in the end as a last resort? Well, I'll be damned. So that is all for today's video, folks. Be sure to let me know down in the comments if you agree or disagree with my ranking. And while you're there, feel free to let me know what ranking you'd like to see next. If you enjoyed that video, be sure to hit that thumbs up button. And if you'd like to see more content, consider subscribing to my channel and ringing that little bell icon. That way you can be notified about all of my latest uploads. And as always, stay safe. Thank you so much for watching. And that's a wrap. Hey you, yeah you, if you made it this far, just know I appreciate you, and while you're here, consider hitting that subscribe button.